Almighty God in heaven, we thank you so much for this message and for this movement. We thank you for good friends and for good fellowship. And we just pray that you'll be with us now as we study your word. In Jesus' name. Okay, so I probably don't know that many of you, but my name's Aaron Sen, and I'm the Bible worker for IPR in America, and I live in Colorado. And I just want to say thank you very much for inviting me here to speak today. So there's been a little turn of events over the last few weeks. You probably know that I was teaching November the 5th, 2024, the election was the date of the Sunday law. Since then, I've dropped that. I think most people know. I've dropped November 5th now. I couldn't sustain it. And I'm actually on board July 18th. So I believe July 18th is the date of the Sunday law now. So that means my presentation is going to be completely different. I've dropped presenting all of that stuff. And I'm going to present something. So basically, I have to do a catch-up. I have to try and start learning and teaching Elder Terry's message. So I'm going to start with that today here, which means you're all going to know more than I do. So I'm not really teaching you today. I'm just going to be practicing on you, really. And because it's the first time, to help me out, I put all the board work up already. So I'm not stumbling through my notes and drawing things and all of that. But first of all, I just feel like I should say sorry to people because I backed an erroneous date, and I'm sorry to the movement. Therefore, please accept my apologies that I misled people who were starting to believe November the 5th or did believe it. And to the July 18th people, I'm terribly sorry for all the frustration I must have caused you, and especially apologies to Elder Terry. I can imagine you all just throwing things at the TV if you even did watch me. So let's see. Okay, so I stuck with the same title as I have been. What time is Sunday law? And today it will be from the perspective of the death of the King of the South. Okay, so because of everything I just explained, I really do only have one presentation, and it's not going to be new to you, I don't think. So I'm not expecting many questions. If you have questions, that's fine. I probably won't be able to answer them, but maybe someone else can, either way. But it means I might not even need to do a second presentation today. I didn't actually cancel it because just in case I did need that time. But if not, maybe we'll get done in one presentation. So we'll see how it goes. Again, this is the first time I've done it, so I'm not too sure. Okay, so I'm used to quite an interactive class. So if you have any thoughts or questions, just interrupt and shout out, or if I need to repeat anything. Okay, so we're going to look at the time of the Sunday law from the perspective of the death of the King of the South. Okay, so you can see already where I'm going to go. As I say, I did the board work already. We'll start here on the line of the 144,000, I think, and you can see that as we move along, I'm going to compare it to one of the lines which Elder Terry has already presented. The line or the story of pagan Rome taking down 3 geographic areas before the King of the North rules the world for a time, 360 years. Okay, so you're probably all familiar with that. And if you're not, just shout out. But I know she's presented that already. The line of 144,000 you would already know. And then we're going to go down here at the end. Okay. So on the line of the 144,000, the death of the King of the South. So Elder Jeff taught Daniel 11:40 and 41. The death of the King of the South was back here, 1991, let's say. So death of the King of the South. And that was Elder Jeff's teaching, which is still correct, except Elder Jeff thought that was the complete and final death of the King of the South. And we never expected Russia really to be a prophetic actor thereafter. But, so I'm going to write complete here. And that's not correct, but that's what Elder Jeff taught at the time. And we'll correct it a bit later on. So Elder Jeff taught the complete death of the King of the South at the end of the Cold War, 1991. And then Elder Tess comes on the scene and her ministry begins. And she says that this is actually going to repeat, and that 1989 was just a deadly wound and 1991 was actually the death. And that gets repeated from Panium to Sunday law. That's correct, isn't it? Yeah. So Elder Tess says, deadly wound of the King of the South at Panium, 2021. And she would say the complete death of the King of the South, the final end, is at Sunday law. Is that correct? Am I according to everyone else's understanding as well? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So at this stage, then, I want to compare and contrast the death of the King of the South to the King of the North. We should be able to do that. So I'm just going to say in its most simplistic terms. It's so simple, it's probably actually wrong. But I'm just going to say for now, for the purposes of this study, the King of the North is America. Okay. So Daniel 11:41, the King of the North enters into the glorious land. So the King of the North is America, and the glorious land is America. So how does the USA overthrow itself? That's what the text is saying. And now we understand that to be what we call an internal victory. When Elder Tess has presented that concept, I don't think she applied it here at Sunday Law. I think she applied it to sort of 2016, maybe 2019, but she would call it civil war, or revolution, counter-revolution, or I think war on the Western Front is another term that she would use. But for now, I'll just call it an internal victory for the King of the North. Okay, so again, when the King of the North enters into the glorious land, that's America overthrowing America. So you could call it civil war or whatever. But for now, I'm just going to call it an internal victory for the King of the North at the Sunday Law Waymark, the National Sunday. Okay, and then recently Elder Terry has brought up an old truth that we've understood since the beginning of the movement, as far as I remember. And that's that the Sunday law, using the 1888 model, Sabbath or Sunday, that the Sunday law starts in America, and then the Sunday law will get passed country by country till it goes around the world. And that here, yes, here, lining up with Daniel 12:1, you would have a worldwide Sunday. So the King of the North takes down 3 geographic areas before it rules the world supreme. That's the way Elder Jeff used to phrase it. Okay? And in the same way, you have the National Sunday Law in America, then it goes country by country until, in Ellen White's words, every country basically has passed a Sunday. Then that will be Daniel 12. So that would mean that by the time you get to the worldwide Sunday law, you have an external victory for the King of the North. Okay, internal means a victory inside America, and external then would mean outside of America, all the other countries. So you've got a complete or an external victory at the worldwide Sunday law. Is all this making sense? Any questions? Any thoughts? Everyone still awake? No one falling asleep yet?
No, we're all awake. Don't worry. Someone will ask something shortly, I'm sure.
Okay, no problem. Just checking. Okay, so recap. Yeah, a victory inside America is an internal victory, and a victory for all the countries outside America, I'm going to call an external victory for the King of the North at Daniel 12:1. External victory for the King of the North. And then really, you could call that a complete victory as well. There's no other countries left to be victorious over. So I'll put complete here as well. External, complete. Just borrowing the phrase from the complete death, just because we're going to compare and contrast that, or compare it soon. Okay. So you can already see that the compare and contrast is breaking down a little bit. Elder Tess taught complete death of the King of the South at Sunday law. But now Elder Terry's brought to our attention that the complete victory of the King of the North is at Daniel 12:1. Really, they should be lining up. Does that make sense? So in order to correct that, I'm going to say that this has to be an internal death or loss for the King of the South. Is that okay? Am I okay to do that? Everyone following?
Yes.
So now you've got this lining up properly. You have an internal death of the King of the South, and I think Elder Terry's already presented that that was the death or murder of Navalny. Am I correct there? That's what's already been presented. And that then lines up with the internal victory for the King of the North, Daniel 11:41. Yeah. Okay, now an internal death for the King of the South is nothing new, okay? That was already established truth, at least by 2019. It's just that no one before Elder Terry had made any kind of application or revisited it until now. But I seem to remember, I think it was 2019, Elder Parminder saying that the King of the North just says to the King of the South, "Hey, King of the South, here's a sword. Why don't you kill yourself?" And the King of the South just says, "Okay, then." I don't know if I couldn't locate the exact video, but either way, I seem to remember that. So Elder Parminder had already put in the message or whatever, in the record, an internal death of the King of the South. And Elder Tess has also done that. Didn't she talk about glasnost and perestroika and the internal protests within the Soviet bloc back here, 1991, which led to this death of the King of the South? So, but Elder Terry has now made an application of it, and we're learning from that now. Okay, so that means that there must also still be an external or complete death of the King of the South. And we know where to place it just from this model that we've already used with the worldwide Sunday law. But now using this model as well. We've got Daniel 8:9. 64 BC was Syria. And in the words of Daniel 8:9, it was the east. And then 63 BC, the king of the north takes the pleasant land, or the glorious land. So that lines up with Daniel 11:41, king of the north entering into the glorious land, or the pleasant land. And then 31 BC is where Egypt, in the words of Daniel 8:9, is the south, lines up with Daniel 12:1. And so it seems obvious to me that if this is the south, I could put king of the south, a king and a kingdom. I'll just add that in myself. And we'll say the king of the south is overthrown here by the king of the north. And so I think you could put the external or complete death of the king of the south lined up here. Does all that make sense?
Aaron,
Yes.
I've just got a thought, and I don't know why it's rambling in my mind. I could be wrong. When it's referring to Egypt there, is that referring to the world at large, or is that referring to the king of the south?
I knew someone would ask that question, and it had to be you, didn't it? That's one question I can't answer. As I say, all this is new to me.
Yeah.
And it has been explained to me. So I know it can be answered. It's just my little brain didn't get it. So I still don't understand that bit. I know there is an answer. Go ahead.
Can I have a go?
Oh, please.
I think it can, and again, I'm a bit rattly in my brain at the moment, but as far as Egypt being the world, by that time, Russia would be just part of the world. So is it no longer the king of the south at that moment moving forward? It's just like Australia, or it's like Fiji, it's like Germany, it's like any other country.
It sounds good. It could well be, but I don't have the kind of brain that can.
And I know Terry's explained it as well. I might have to go back and revisit it myself.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to go to Terry for that one. I think, and go back over some videos. But anyway,
you keep going. Sorry.
okay. I did have a thought. I don't know. I don't even know if this is the answer. But just a thought. Elder Tess said when she thought the complete and final death of the King of the South was the Sunday law, she said that from Sunday law, the seventh kingdom begins. And she said, so America dictates over the United Nations. And America can do that because now Russia has been removed as an opponent. And so America can dictate. But now, I guess we're moving that, or we're reapplying, or I'm not sure exactly precisely what the wording should be. But if I just say we're moving that to here, because Elder Terry is saying that the King of the North begins to rule the world supremely from actually Daniel 12:1. So the King of the North takes down 3 geographic areas before it rules the world supremely. And here it's for a time, 360. So the death of the King of the South does have something to do with the King of the North ruling the world. That's just a thought. It may not even be the answer. I don't know.
Okay. I think with even with Elder Terry's most recent one at the Netherlands, what I saw you doing there is a similar way of explaining it, but she drew like you know, the King of the North's or Seventh Kingdom's expansion, but it just kept expanding beyond the Sunday law. And then that's the expanding into the world. And so that's, I guess, the overtaking of the countries right up until the close of probation. And so Russia would just be part of that world, just like all the other countries.
Yeah, I do see your point. Sounds good to me. So we'll wait and see, you know, as the weeks go by.
Can I
Aaron?
just make one quick? Oh, sorry, someone else
No,
had a
go
comment.
Go ahead, Lynn. I'll follow you.
I was only going to say that with Trump's recent stance, it appears that he's aligning himself with Russia more than he is with the old allies. So it's almost like now he's on the same side. That's what it looks like, right? And some people are thinking that Putin's the stronger one in that relationship. However, what if Putin isn't? And what if it is actually a part of the strategy, if you like, of the King of the North to be able to give a false sense of security to the King of the South, which really makes them more vulnerable at the end of the day. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out over time, because I think that will actually lead to what we're looking at the close of probation Sunday, or the worldwide Sunday law.
Yes.
Just a thought.
Good. Yeah, I like that. Did someone else have something to say?
It's me, Josephine.
Oh, hi.
Hi. I have been studying the King of the North just since last camp. I think I came across a statement that Elder Tess mentioned. By 2018, Trump was well established as a dictator. That's it.
Okay. Oh, great. Thank you. Okay, appreciate that. Okay. So we have an external or complete death of the King of the South, Daniel 12:1. And now our compare and contrast is all lined up. So I'm thinking this is correct. So what does the complete or the external death of the King of the South look like? So we just need to compare and contrast it. So this external or complete victory of the King of the North over the world, we said that was external to the US. So this external death of the King of the South would then have to be external of Russia. And what's going on externally of Russia, as you just said, is Ukraine. So we look to the Ukraine war to find out how this is going to look. So this is what I've got in my notes anyway, to add to that. It's a loss to Putin because Putin's bowing to Trump's terms. Trump is clearly dictating the terms of this peace deal at the moment, is what it's called. And Putin just needs it so badly to get out of this quagmire. Arian said that since 2022, it's just been a stalemate and Putin can't extract himself from Ukraine. So Trump comes along and offers him that opportunity, but it's all on Trump's terms. You just need to look at the news for that. I won't go into all those details. And by the way, Europe is also bowing to Trump's terms. Trump says America's not going to police Ukraine, and they're not receiving any more military aid. Ukraine. So Europe has to supply that. Europe has to police Ukraine afterwards. And Ukraine is also bowing to the King of the North, Trump, because they have to accept the terms of his peace deal, which means handing over something like 50% of the mineral rights as it stands today. Things are bound to change. But it just does seem like everyone is bowing to Trump's dictating the terms of the peace deal. So I think it is a loss to Putin. Okay, so we say it's external. Something that I used to argue when I believe November 5th is that you actually have pretty much all the Russian proxies in the Middle East, I'll say, have just collapsed or become ineffective. And because all of that clustered around November the 5th, I just thought, perfect. That must be the death of the King of the South, losing the Middle Eastern proxies. Hamas, Hezbollah, Syria, Iran, the Houthis. Wasn't that immediate broadcast this morning? YouTube short, I think, anyway. And when Israel just took out all of the Iranian surface-to-air missiles, the air defenses, they just flew over, took them all out and other military installations and flew back without losing a single plane or a single pilot. And then that was, I think, October 27, October 29, something like that, pretty close to November the 5th. So I thought, great. And then Assad flees Damascus, Syria collapses, December something, beginning of December, I think it was. So that will look good to me, but that can't be true. Okay, I had to be wrong there. And that's because if you go back to the Cold War model, and Elder Pominda used to teach this a very long time ago. During the Cold War, there were two theaters, one in Afghanistan that we know, and in Europe as well. So there was a Middle Eastern theater and a European theater during the Cold War, and it was the European theater that brought down the King of the South at the end of the Cold War. So it's going to be the European theater, Ukraine, that brings the final and complete death of the King of the South. So when I say external, has to be Europe, has to be Ukraine. So now we need to start looking at the model of Ukraine to find out any more. Okay, any thoughts? Let me catch up. Okay, so it's actually, I mentioned Arian already. It's Arian, that's the Ukraine expert, and he's already given us a model. So we'll line up right, this is the harvest of the Levites here. And now I'm going to get this right. So this should be 2021. Then Arian's got identified increase of knowledge and formalization, what he's thinking for the Ukraine war. And then he's saying that the peace deal is the national Sunday law. But we've already seen how a peace deal for Ukraine, or the end of the Ukraine war, or whatever stage, as the Ukraine war ends, whatever stage it is, because you would have agreeing to a peace deal and signing it, then you've probably got negotiations, then you're probably going to have a ceasefire, and then eventually the war in Ukraine will end. And I don't know what stage of the ending of the Ukraine war Arian is saying, but he is linking it to the peace deal. And so Arian says that the Sunday law time period began in February 2025, okay, when the peace deal started to be introduced, put it that way. But we've already said that Ukraine is the external death of the King of the South. So now you can see with this model, compare and contrast, it doesn't quite line up correctly. This, I must put it on the board, the internal death of the king of the south was an avowal. So I think the logical thing to do, let's say, is we've said that's the death of the king of the south. You teach, you teacher. And that lines up with the worldwide Sunday law, Daniel 12:1. And we've said external, Ukraine, death of the king of the south, lines up here. So I'm thinking, wouldn't logic really just say that probably what's happened is Arian's actually identified the external or complete death of the king of the south, and that this peace deal, stroke end of the Ukraine war, actually identifies the worldwide Sunday law and Daniel 12:1. That's actually it. I told you it would be quick, very quick. So that's it. Any thoughts?
Actually, that's interesting what you've just said about Ian's presentations, because I, after watching those, I felt as though a lot of what he was saying was most relevant to the worldwide Sunday law, more than the national. I'm not sure that he feels like that, but at the same time, that was the thoughts that I had. So I think that's interesting that you've pointed that out as well.
I only watched Elder Terry in the Netherlands once, I think, so far. But from memory, didn't Elder Terry say that to Arian? I think you.
Yes,
Mm.
she did in that presentation, absolutely. And that was after I had already decided that, which I thought was also interesting, because I thought, because I'd written down I was going to ask him a question about that. And then I watched that presentation of Elder Terry's and I thought, oh, there you go, that's come up there. And then now you've brought that up there. So I don't know. Anyway, it's an interesting thing, and it'll be interesting to see how that all, develops, I guess.
Yes. Okay, that's interesting that you were recognizing that before as well. Okay, that's literally it. Did everyone understand everything? Do I need to go back over anything?
Well, then it brings up, and for me, an obvious question. Let's assume we do that for a second, and Elder Terry's right, and what you're saying there is correct. Therefore, we're missing two waymarks, because if we're from Arian's study, because if we're pushing them forward, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So you mean the increase of knowledge and the formalization in the harvest of the Levite?
Yeah. So it opens up now, if we're pushing that forward, which makes logical sense. We're missing other waymarks now that we need to fill in from the King of the South's perspective.
I have a feeling that, I'll just say Elder Terry, I think Elder Terry already has dates for the increase of knowledge and the formalization. Isn't it?
Does.
Yeah, 2022 increase of knowledge and formalization, May 2024, is that right? So anyway, whatever Elder Terry said, I think Arian actually said in one of his presentations to France, they need to line up no matter what the story is. You've got to get at least the same year, because we have different dates in this year. We have different dates in 1989 for different stories, because all the different stories we have now, gender equality, fall of democracy, all the different King of the South, King of the North, they're not all going to happen on the same day or month. But I think so long as they happen in the same year. So if this is correct, then I would think, well, let's look at Elder Terry's dates for increase of knowledge and formalization and see if in that year things were happening in Ukraine, which also fits the increase of knowledge and formalization. maybe something like that. I would have to leave that to everyone else, though. There's no way I could figure stuff out like that.
Aaron,
Yes.
I don't know how I missed it, but when the Sunday laws were presented, I didn't get to watch yours. I didn't get to watch Aaron. And so I ended up just watching Terry's. And I thought, oh, well, I must go back and watch these other two because for some reason I didn't get to watch it. But now that you're saying, you know, you've changed your mind, and I'm glad you're honest enough to let us know. But you don't have to apologize to me, to the movement,
you.
yes, but not to me because I didn't go there.
Okay, good.
I appreciate the lining up of the events that you're doing now. My comment that I made about the establishment of Donald Trump as a dictator, I think maybe that should encompass America becoming that too. May not be in the way we saw Hitler, you know, how he did it, but it could very well. It wasn't, you know, she didn't say any more after that, but I was impressed when I came across that statement.
Okay. Good, thanks. Okay.
Aaron, just asking, have you watched sorry, Antonio. Elder Terry's presentation to France? She gives a second witness for a lot of this.
Yes, I've watched those a few times. Can you elaborate? What are you thinking?
I've only watched it the once, so I need to watch it again as well. So I think it would help clarify the increase of knowledge between the two Sunday laws and stuff like that.
Okay. So that increase of knowledge is concord. So that's concord, and that's loud cry. Okay.
Aaron, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Can you remind me of what the questions were that you were posing in your presentations up till now? I've forgotten what they were exactly. And then can you let us know sort of how you view those now?
So the main, I'll say, evidence I thought I had, and what really made me think it was I was correct, is that November 5th had a unique quality that none of the other dates had, and that was the mark of the beast. Because on all the other dates, July 18, January 20, I think, you don't get the people doing anything. And the mark of the beast says everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, gets the mark of the beast. So I thought you have to have the people doing something to get the mark of the beast. And on, on November 5th, people were voting. So what happened in France when Elder Terry was presenting, she says that the mark of the beast is no longer being placed at the Sunday law waymark. She says, this is the mark of the beast waymark, but this loud cry is when the mark of the beast test is. And I hadn't heard that before, but it seemed reasonable to me. You can go back over the Ellen White quotes, and there's maybe one or two that I could have used to argue, where I could have said, she says it's at Sunday law. But the others, the majority, the weight of evidence, said the mark of the beast test is at the loud cry. So once you take away my main evidence, I just knew November 5th would collapse. It's the only unique aspect November 5th had. And again, it was my main evidence. And also during France, other questions of mine were answered. Like I would say, that ship of Acts 27, that represents the whole of America, not half. And on July 18th, only half of America was represented or voted. But in France, Elder Terry talked about what exactly the seventh kingdom is. And it's just the Republican Party or Trumpism. And so the whole of the seventh kingdom was represented at July 18th. So that was probably my second strongest evidence.
So you would
Which-
say that the ship of Alexandria is the seventh kingdom?
So again, I'm trying to catch up with Elder Terry's teaching. So that's why I don't want to teach anything today.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, so I'm going to say go to Elder Terry for those sorts
Sure.
of things.
I think I get your point about you were asking people to say what's the mark of the beast at that way, Mark, and now you've not sort of it's not what I think it's because you've moved when that happens that now you feel okay. Yep.
Yes. It was only 13 months or 14 months earlier in Germany in January, that'd be January 2024, I think. Anyway, at the end of one of the videos, I think Elder Parminder had two videos, I'm not too sure. But at the end of one, right before they close, Elder Parminder's talking to Curtis. Curtis is in the audience. And they're discussing that 5 testimonies quote, when the decree is enforced and the stamp is impressed. And Elder Parminder says, where do you place that? And I think Curtis started out with saying, like here or here, basically, Daniel 12:1, when the stamp is impressed. Because we do teach that Daniel 12:1 is the sealing of the 144,000. That's another thing that I wouldn't be able to argue against, if you're following my train of thought, sorry. But Elder Parminder said to Curtis, no, you actually put that at Sunday law, when the decree is passed or enforced or something, and the stamp is impressed. So it was only a few months, like 13 months or something earlier, that we were still putting it there. But now when Elder Terry's corrected that, it makes more sense to me, it fits.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
I think it clears it up that we know Sunday law is just a term, not literal. So when we're trying to say the mark is actually at what we used to call the close of probation, or you can call Sunday law, but Daniel 12:1, it just makes more sense that at that time, and if you watch Elder Terry, then she goes, after Daniel 12:1, then we've still got a Boston, Concord, Exeter as well.
Yes. Yeah, correct.
When I was looking at the different models being put out, I sort of immediately went back to the line of the Nethinims, and I guess it's just what Greg just said, the importance of Boston, Concord, Exeter, because it tells us that dispensational model of what's supposed to happen, and the test occurs at the formalization. That's when you've got to do something, or you're forced to do something very uncomfortable, or you stand up and say, no, I don't like that. And I guess if you were to put the mark of the beast at Sunday law waymark, you're essentially harvesting the Nethinims before they've even had a chance to hear anything. It's like you're harvesting them on day one when the message gets unsealed. And that breaks the model of the line.
And that's why Elder Terry's correction just has a weight of evidence behind it.
Yeah.
What I was alluding to before, but getting all mixed up in my head, is the sealing of the 144,000. So if that's the seal of God, then why is the mark of the beast, compare and contrast, seal of God with mark of the beast.
Yeah.
The seal of God is down here. Why is the mark of the beast there? There's all that. So France was a turning point. France was excellent.
Well, Catherine asked my question. I was saying, Aaron, what actually caused you to change? But you've sort of answered that. Because that's an important question for people to hear, because what actually convinced you, Aaron, to change your mind? Because I think that's an important question for people to hear.
And
And
I'll tell you a little secret. Don't tell anyone. So once Elder Terry was in Fiji, and I was watching her do that. I won't call it triple application of prophecy, because we're not yet able to apply the second line, the papacy, King of the North. I have confidence we will in the future, and it will become a triple application of prophecy. Either way, when Elder Terry did pagan Rome, papal Rome, and then King of the North, America, whatever, I thought to myself, that's something that God leads you into. And so then the obvious thing is, if God is leading Elder Terry, are you sure you should be opposing her? So while that class or that structure doesn't disprove November 5th, doesn't prove July 18th, I did think to myself, you need to start, you need to be on your toes now, because I believed God was leading Elder Terry. So that was the beginning of it. And then I think maybe the very next camp meeting was France, where I actually get the evidence. And I'll be honest, it was such a relief. I thought we can all be in harmony now, pretty much, mostly anyway. And I felt quite excited that if we're all in harmony moving forward, now what's God going to show us? If we can move forward with the message. So that's my secret.
so again, it was the lines. You saw a line.
What really impressed me, it's just a sort of a side issue, but it was such old truth from the very beginning of the movement. Like you noticed I was using Elder Jeff's terminology. Takes down 3 geographic areas before it rules the world supremely. And the worldwide Sunday law. When we thought it was Sunday for all those decades, we always used to say, it goes around the world, country by country, until the King of the North has the whole world. So it just reminds me a bit of that, the end from the beginning type thing, using the earliest doctrines that we had. So, okay. Any other thoughts?
That's actually an interesting comment too, because I was thinking along similar lines. As we've been going through, I've been trying to watch as much as I can what all the presenters are presenting. However, and it's hard to not be biased when you feel as though someone is being led by God because of the lines that Brendan just mentioned, but also what you've just said brought out too, the fact that it's gone back. It's almost like we get to go back and see the beginning through different eyes, right? We now have another pair of glasses and we can go back and we can see, okay, that's what all that meant. We had no real idea back then. We were kind of like swimming around in the dark a little bit, and trying to move forward as much as we could. And it's always been a bit like this. We go back and we can see it so much more clearly. I guess hindsight's a wonderful thing. So, I think I appreciate your comments about that, and Brendan's too, in regard to how that. And I was actually also going to ask you what really made you change your mind, because I think that is an important thing to understand, especially when you had such a strong presentation or you were very strong on what you were trying to present there. So it is very interesting to hear how your thinking developed and changed. So appreciate your sharing all of that. Thank you.
So there's three things that I've mentioned so far: the mark of the beast test moving, the seventh kingdom being explained, and I still don't understand it fully. I don't think I could present it, but if for me it answered the question about the ship and all of that. There was one other. I just said it. Can't remember. But those are the three things. Oh yeah, the proxies. I thought it was the Middle Eastern proxies that were being lost to Israel. It was the death of the king of the south. But actually, as I said, at the end of the Cold War, it was the European front which actually brought down the king of the south. So this has to be Ukraine. Yeah, that was it. It was those three things.
Have
Okay.
you
It's
have you
interesting
thought
that.
about
Oh, go ahead.
have you thought about internal events at all?
Internal events for the movement.
Movement, yeah. I struggle with that myself.
No, I really haven't. I always tell people I can't figure things out for myself. I can't innovate. Short answer is no. Sorry, I don't know. Did someone else start to say something?
It's me. I thought it was interesting that Lynn brought up the fact that the United States, the US, is getting really chummy with Russia. Perhaps I don't have the exact words, Lynn. I'm sorry, but I'll put it in the way I understand it. It's like, make friends with you, then I could easily know your weaknesses and vulnerable points, and then I can bring you down. I thought along those lines too, but I sort of didn't go beyond that. But that's how enemies in the past defeat their people in the factions in the past defeat each other through appearance of making leagues or alliances. Then you learn more about your enemy because it's right close to you while you plan the defeat of that.
Yeah, good point. I like that.
That's that old saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Yeah.
Remember that one?
Yeah.
Can I put a positive spin on, I guess, the experience over the last few months, or 4 or 5 months, or 6, 8 months? I think even Elder Terry would agree that when things are interrogated, questioned, opposed, it refines the message in a way that helps a lot more people to understand it. So the impact of, I guess, what's happened, it's made Elder Terry go back multiple times and renew and refine it to a point where more and more people have sort of have understood it in an easier fashion. So I don't want to say your experience is completely negative. I don't believe that. I think it was, if I put a positive spin, I think it was helpful in some ways as well, that I think it's progressed the message as well. I don't think we should all just be putting your hand up and saying yes, and then it turns into a cult of personality. So we've got to, I think we've, I think she would agree that she likes questions because it helps her think about it from different perspectives as well. That's my little take on it as well. But anyway, I'll hand it back to you. If what do you want to do, Aaron? Do you want to close with prayer and open it up for more questions, or how would you like to?
I don't know. Would there be any more questions?
Or do we
Oh, I
just
have a
leave it open
comment.
now, and when the question's finished, then we close with prayer? Is that how you would like to operate?
May as well. I feel like there might be 2 or 3, but fire
Okay.
away. And if we go over time, we can always come back. It
Okay.
hasn't been an hour yet. So.
Okay.
Someone
I
started
think,
to speak?
yeah,
Yeah.
I think Brendan is right on line with Ellen White's comment about controversy makes the point. I'm not quoting word for word. I'm summarizing her point. Makes the point much clearer. It brings it to the forefront. So yeah, Aaron, there's another one agreeing with Ellen White agrees with what Brendan's saying. I'm quoting her in summary. And so we're grateful for all that you have done in studying and, grateful for your honesty.
Thank you. Much appreciated. I will say the greatest irony in all of it for me was, I think even in my prayer, opening or closing prayer, and during presenting, I would say you've got to be objective, not subjective. You've got to go with the facts and the figures. Thinking I had all the facts and the figures. And in the end, it was me that had to swallow that pill, or whatever it's called. I had to be objective and realize, I got it wrong. So I just found that quite ironic.
I agree with Brendan too. Sorry, Josephine, I don't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to say
Go
I
ahead.
agree.
No, you're not interrupting me.
I don't think it's been a negative experience. I think there's been a lot of wisdom shown by Elder Parminda in encouraging everyone to present and for everyone to watch, because this enables unity to happen instead of creating factions. So I think that's been really good. And I don't think that there's, even though I'm sure from your perspective, it felt like you were swallowing a bit of a bitter pill, but in actual fact, I think it's been very helpful for everybody to be able to, I mean, if you hadn't come around to a different perspective, you wouldn't have been able to share what your reasoning was with that, which in turn can help other people to maybe look at their reasoning more clearly. So I think it's all been very positive, really. I think, and I'm still trying to work it all out myself. Obviously, I know nothing much at all, really, but it's just been very, very, it's a blessing, the whole thing, really.
That's a nice point. I think that's important, the way Elder Parminda handled it and started this initiative, I think he called it, it's basically it's worked so far, hasn't it? Because I've dropped November 5th, and so I think his wisdom in that is also notable. I agree there. Yeah.
Aaron, you in one of your presentations you made mention of 273 and the date of Maximus Gurgis going to Egypt, I think it was. Where have you found a solution around that, or was Elder Terry's presentation in Fiji able to help with that?
I don't remember what Elder Terry said in Fiji about it. So I don't remember that, but I think I'm going to just leave that to Elder Terry to work on and present her conclusions. Yeah. Sorry, not much of an answer, but I'll leave that with her, I think. I'm sure she'll be able to answer it.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So it looks like I get an early night tonight. What do you think? Should we close there?
If no one's got any other questions,
Wait.
Go
Can you
on.
just summarize this? Can you move away from the board so I can see the board clearly? Can you
Sure.
summarize what happened, lining up these events right at the very bottom, 2024 and that? Yeah, National Sunday Law, right. Just give me a
Okay.
a summary.
So we've seen that you can put the internal death of the King of the South at Sunday law. King of the North enters into the glorious land. So you have to put, did I say that wrong? Let me say it again. An internal victory for the King of the North at Sunday law. King of the North enters into the glorious land. Which means you can really only put an internal death of the King of the South at the National Sunday law. And Elder Terry's already done that. She said that's the death of the vow. So then when you go to Aryan's study on Ukraine, he places an external thing, Ukraine. It's external to Russia. An external event at this National Sunday law. And I'm thinking the external events all go at Daniel 12. Because Daniel 12:1 is where the King of the North conquers the world, and the countries outside of America is the rest of the world. So you've got an external witness there, and so you would put an external death of the King of the South there as well, Daniel 12:1. So this peace deal, again, it's about Ukraine, external to Russia. So I think Aryan has identified the worldwide Sunday law, the external, final and complete death of the King of the South. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's beginning to make sense. I'll borrow a copy of the video and I'll watch that bit again, since I didn't watch Aaron's message, so I'll just go over that bit to cement it in my mind.
Hi, Aaron. This is Marie here. I just wanted to ask you one question, just on a few things you just said then. So with the external defeat of the King of the South at the worldwide Sunday law, do you think that I think you were saying this before, I just wanted to clarify. So do you think that will be the European powers backing the peace treaty in Ukraine?
So when we put peace deal here, I don't know what stage of the peace deal would be Daniel 12:1. Is that what you're asking? Which stage it would be, the European powers or?
I'm not sure if that's what I was asking. I guess I was just thinking about how movements are all taking shape at the moment, with the European powers trying to get behind Ukraine, and even Australia saying that they would, if necessary, send troops over there to protect that peace treaty. And I guess I was just wondering, you mentioned something about Europe before, and I just wanted to clarify if that's what you were thinking. That would be the end result of that destruction of the King of the South. Those powers all getting together so he can't continue. Mm.
Yeah, I like that thought. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you'd think it would have to be something that clearly shows the death of Putin's power and influence, wouldn't you?
I just thought that's sort of like what you were saying. It just appeared that's how it was lining up in that way. So I just was wondering if that's what you were implying too. It sort of fitted, but yeah. Mm.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I wasn't thinking that. But I like the
Okay.
idea. Yeah,
Okay. Thanks very much.
thanks.
Hi, Aaron. This is George from Fiji. It's interesting that it was last week, that incident that happened with Trump and President Zelensky of Ukraine. And I was watching the CNN news report, and they were talking about what happened. and a senator they were interviewing a senator who is a Democratic member of a Democratic Party, and he mentioned these exact words. Remember, the signing of this peace treaty by Putin would mean a surrender of his power. That's what he said. It will be a surrender of his power. And then, like he was saying, will be very hard for Putin to sign this deal, because that's what this peace treaty will do. It will be like a surrender of his power, or it will make him look bad. That's what the senator was saying. It would make Putin look bad in front of his people and also the whole world. So to me, that was interesting, based upon what we're learning about the death of the King of the South. And then when he mentioned that senator mentioned that in that interview, I found it very interesting, because if he's going to sign this, that really means that he's giving in to Trump's, the King of the North, and he's surrendering everything that he has worked for many years when he signs this peace treaty deal with Trump, with America. And also one thing I've seen is like all the other presenters that El Paminda is given to present. One thing I've noticed is that like for you spoke a lot about the King of the South. I saw Curtis speaking a lot about the King of the North, and I think Elena is the other one that she focused on Islam. I think the Islam. To me, I could see that somehow, some way, because these are all the key components in the Sunday Law market. We could see all this group people, King of the South, King of the North, and the Islam. To me, my way of thinking, I may be corrected, is that somehow all the information with the agreement of the date, all this information could help be used to help us more understand of how the last events will play out. Because it's very interesting. I'm saying it's very interesting how your view is you focus on King of the South, Curtis was on the King of the North, and Elena was the East Wind, or Islam in matter of fact. So, but we understand from old studies that these are all the things that will transpire in the Sangalo way market. Just to add on to that. Thank you.
And Ariane's work on Ukraine, I think, is really good. I think it's really good as well, just to mention that. Okay.
Aaron, if I may, it's not really a question, but I'm just throwing thoughts out that I have about trying to organize all of this with things like, obviously the images has to be set up first. So when the image is set up, that's July 18. Yeah.
I'm not good on the image.
Okay. Another thing that's or things that are swimming around in my mind trying to sort out with all of this as well is the 10 Kings rule. And then at some point, and is it I would assume after the worldwide Sunday law, that he shall come to his end and none shall help?
He shall come to his end, none shall help.
Daniel 11:45.
Just all these thoughts, like
12:1. Didn't we say the loud cry says, "Come out of Babylon," and tidings out of the east and the north trouble him? And then Revelation 18, Babylon is collapsing and everything. The merchants are wailing and all of that. I think we used to, I can't remember. Yeah. What were you thinking? Was that Daniel 12:1 to you or anyone?
Well, in light of everything we've been learning, and I know Elder Terry mentioned it, and I haven't got it in my mind, where it says about him coming to his end and none shall help, because as the seventh kingdom rises, at some point, those that put the seventh kingdom in power are going to turn against the seventh kingdom, and they're the ones that are going to destroy the seventh kingdom. But at what point, I'm not sure. And is that the 10 kings?
I got a feeling we always place that at Daniel 12:1, but if we're going to review that, I'd be fine with that as well.
Elder Terry said Daniel 12:1 is the peak of their power, the seventh kingdom. Because, and then then obviously, well, I don't want to say obviously, it's more the downfall of that would progressively happen from that point on. But Daniel 12:1, because they've just taken over the world. They've got everything. They're at the peak of their power.
Okay. That does ring a bell. I think I remember Elder Terry saying.
Yeah.
Now that you've said it.
I think Elder Terry's up to between 20 and 30 presentations now, starting from about May 2024. So, I mean, there's for all of us, whether we're just reviewing or going back to recheck, and there's a bit to sort of go back and understand as well. And I think even with what the dispensation we're in, I know there's lots of stories and everything, but the thing that Elder Terry sort of keeps mentioning is we sort of need to understand the manosphere of what actually occurred in July, because that's the seed, or that's the foundation, the base of what causes the mark of the beast in people. So I think that's sort of, I know there's lots of different stories going on around at the same time, and that's sort of the pertinent one that I can see what she's sort of trying to tell us as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. That was a really interesting point to me as well, how July 18 with that manosphere thing going on, and she said November the 5th was just a completely normal election. I thought, yeah, it's true, things like that.
Brendan, would another way of saying that be the political is personal? So July 18 being like the seed of everything, and then you said something about that's going to be like demonstrating out then in the people when they receive the mark of the beast. Was that what you were saying? And then so if that is what you just said, another way, would that be another way to say it, that the political was the personal?
I'm not sure. It sounds right. I guess the personal is political on either side. I guess what I'm saying, if I say it in a different way, the seventh kingdom, appeared. The image appeared on July 18 for all to see. And now that seventh kingdom in the glorious land is going to go to work, and at the formalization is going to force people to do something associated with breaking, breaking something to do with the manosphere that breaks equality. Something's going to, whatever that is. So the seventh kingdom's going to work now. But simultaneously, there's another story about, them taking over the world. So there's all sorts of things happening.
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking, it made me think the way you said it, sorry, that the person that took the meeting, was it last Sabbath or the week before? What was his name? What's his name from England? Yeah, it just reminded me of sort of along the lines of what he was saying about you know, we have to not just know the message, but we have to have humanity combined with divinity. And so we have that humanism point of view, but without the divinity, there's no, it's of no use. But I guess I was just thinking more along those lines, that what we saw on July 18 and all the patriarchal, you know, just the way it was so displayed, that will be then portrayed personally when people actually receive the mark of the beast. It's just the way you said it, just gave me that picture.
I think Elder Terry said the same thing. There's the image of the beast. Well, you're going to see the image of God too. And that's supposed to be that's supposed to be this movement.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Is anyone
Aaron, can I?
from
Yeah,
PG
just
got something to say?
can I just answer smallly? We sort of understand externally the king of the south, and the king of the north, Islam. But then internally, Craig was asking me, well, where is the movement while all this is happening? Is the line of Christ sort of give us an idea of what's happening internally with the movement?
What are you thinking? How would it do that?
Now, in connecting how the disciples were sort of in disagreement with a lot of things. Jesus was planning already. It's just time to betray Christ. The church was sort of going behind the scenes, trying to do deal whether they kill him or not kill him.
So you're talking about
Yeah.
events pertaining to the cross, I think.
Yeah,
Well, I think we placed the cross at 2019.
19.
So it's a bit, yeah. But maybe you can make application to now. I wouldn't know how to do that.
Thank you.
I have another turn. The young people, the generation Z, Gen Z, that put Trump and kind of push him to win the election, I would say. I read something by G0 that it's not his policy that helped him to win, it's his macho attitude, and the young people like that. His policy, and I'm trying to tie this to what we're talking about today, the economy and all of that. I think we'll eventually go a different path. Instead of the positive, it would turn negative, turn sour. Because these young people are young people that don't have jobs. They're disillusioned with the government before, didn't take an interest in them. Unemployment amongst them is very high, etc., etc. If his promises don't come true, I would say they could turn on him. Could anything like that be part of what will bring the King of the North down? Just my thoughts along that.
Yeah, could be. I don't know. I always say I'm just no good at figuring things out for myself. I just try and learn what the elders teach and then reproduce it in my own way, that kind of thing. So I don't know. Maybe.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You're honest there. Just the thoughts, the musing of my own mind.
Yeah, interesting.
would you say the thing that brings the King of the North down is the same thing that brings Lucifer down, which is the same thing that brought the papacy down in the 1260? It's all just the same thing, reoccurring history, repeating, same events, same circumstance.
You remind me now, when you say that the literal model of Babylon, so the king of the north was used as a tool in God's hand to punish Israel and to bring them into captivity for their unfaithfulness. But they experienced Gadol, or they enjoyed it too much, they lifted themselves up, and they enjoyed the punishing too much. So then the kings of the east come. And someone mentioned the east wind to bring down the king of the north, Babylon. And we know that from the third woe you get Islam first hurts and then kills the army of Rome, America. So someone said, Elder Terry has already said that's the height of the king of the north's power. And so even though it rules, I wonder if you'd factor that in as well. Yeah. So just a thought as well.
May I ask a
Is-
question? This is Wole. Spirit of prophecy teaches that the image of the beast formed before the Sunday law. And if we mark July 18, the formation of the image of the beast, as well as the Sunday law, how that agrees with the statement in the Spirit of prophecy, which states the image of the beast has to be formed before the Sunday law. Thank you.
I don't know. Can anyone answer? I'm not even aware of that. Ellen White says the image of the beast is formed before Sunday law.
I think, yeah, there is a statement like that.
I don't know if anyone else can answer. I can tell any
Doesn't that
question.
equate? Sorry.
No,
Doesn't
go
that
ahead.
equate with the plains of Dura where the image was set up and they all saw it beforehand, but it wasn't until they were told to bow down that the test came? Is that kind of what you're talking about, or what Ollie
No,
was
there is a
talking about?
quotation in the Spirit of prophecy saying that the image of the beast has to be formed before the Sunday law.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think there is a plain statement like that. Yeah, although I can't find right now, not in front of me. I remember it's in my mind.
Yes, but I think Lynn has a point, because we have a live picture of what happened at the plain of Dura. We see it happening, forming, and eventually we have the full formed image. And then the test comes, worship. So yes, if well, I suppose we could look up that quotation after this. But yeah, I could see that there is good reasoning for, because I agree with Lynn, good reasoning for what she mentioned. I'm not going against you, Wallach. I'm with you.
No,
I'm gonna
you are
look up
right.
the quote.
Yeah, in one sense, it is true actually, because the image of the beast
Yeah,
has been,
good point.
was in the making until July 18. And when it was visible, actually marking the arrival of the Sunday law could be, I don't know. Thank you.
Catherine's
There's-
quote
yeah,
in
just
the
put a quote.
chat
Yeah.
says the
Could I
image of the
just
beast
say,
is formed before the close of probation. And Curtis also broke down the plains of Jura in a presentation he did. I think it was and I thought he did quite a good job of laying that out. Can't remember what it was. The
Oh,
UK.
thank you, Catherine. Yeah. I'm sorry. I made a mistake.
If I mentioned earlier about Elder Terry's presentation in France, and if we know the image of the beast was set up July 18, but if you want to see the image being built, I think the French presentation shows that with Session and the two other fellows. Remember she was saying that all of those things that they did in July 18th and even doing now was constructed back in 2012, 2014, whenever it was.
I think so.
Remember those dates?
Yeah.
So that was, the image was being set up way before July 18th.
Mm.
And she explained that in the French meeting.
Thank you for that. Yeah, thanks very much. I have to go back and watch that again. Yeah.
Are you able to see the chat, Aaron?
No.
No, because there's a
Pretty sure.
Catherine's just posted a quote there
Okay.
from Two Selected Messages 81. Do you want me
Lord
to
has
read
shown
it?
me- Oh yes,
Oh
please.
yeah,
go.
you can see it. Cool. No, you can read it.
Okay. The Lord has shown me clearly that the image of the beast will be formed before probation closes, for it is to be the great test for the people of God, by which their eternal destiny will be decided. Yeah. Second Selected Messages 81. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Has anyone from Fiji got any questions or thoughts before we close? Or anyone else?
I wouldn't be able
who's
to answer any questions anyway. There's all just going to be, I don't know.
online?
Just wanted to say thank you for being so honest today. And I know that it's a hard thing to do. And I know we've all been through it, every single one of us. There's not one of us that hasn't had to admit that we've been wrong at some point in our lives. And some people are more honest than other people. And I just want to thank you for being one of those people that's so honest. And I just also wanted to say that you have lovely cats.
Of course I do. Very proud of them.
And thank you for today. I appreciate it. I hope you get a
Thank
good
you.
sleep.
I will, thanks. You know, I've got so much wrong over the decades. I'm getting really good at it, being wrong and apologizing. And so it's quite an art for me at this stage.
I know how you
Thank you.
feel.
I appreciate it. I guess we can close there, shall we? It's been an hour and a half, and I'm not going to be able to answer any more questions. They're all just going to come back. I don't know.
Yeah.
Shall I
Thank you
say
very
prayer?
much, Aaron. It's good to see
Thank
you
Thank
again
you.
after a long time.
I know it's been years. It's
Yeah,
good to hear you.
yes. Like to meet you someday.
Yes. Okay, I'll say a prayer to close. Almighty God in heaven, we thank you again for good friends and for good fellowship and for this good message. And we pray that you'll be with us now, even until the close of probation and on to eternity. We thank you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.